If your Python program works perfectly until you take user input, this video fixes that. Till now, we have written programs where values were fixed inside the code. But real programs don't work like that. Real programs take input from users. Without input, Python programs are not interactive, and interactive programs are what companies actually use. So far, whenever we created a variable, we used to assign the value to the respective variable ourselves. But this input function allows the user to type the data from the keyboard, and that data will be stored inside this variable. And you can also give a prompt inside this input, inside the codes, which will help the user understand what data he's supposed to enter. Now, when I run this, we'll be able to see that prompt, which will help the user to understand what he's supposed to enter, and that data will automatically get assigned to this variable. And as we wanted to display it, this value is being displayed on the output screen through the print function. Now, whatever data which has been taken through input function will be treated as a string. No matter what data it is, whether it is a number or a float value or anything, it will still be treated as a string. Like in the variable age, we mostly enter numbers as the data, right? I'm asking the user to enter his age, and let us find out what will be the data type of this variable. So in the previous video, we have discussed about the type function, which helps us to find the data type of a specific variable. Now, when I run this, it will first ask me about my name, then I'll be entering my age. So though I have entered an integer, a whole number, it is still treating it as a string, which will cause a problem when we want to perform some mathematical operations on it. So though we have entered a number and we want to perform some mathematical operation on it. So we assume that we have entered a number and we can easily perform a mathematical operation on it. But that's not the case. Because it has been treated as a string, we cannot add a string to an integer. So we have entered the value, but the error it is throwing is it can only concatenate, that means add a string to a string and not an integer. So we can fix this, or we can overcome this drawback using type conversion. So type conversion is where we can convert the data type of a specific variable. So whenever you want a data to be treated as an integer or a float, you will simply write int or float behind the input, and that data will be converted from a string to an integer. Now, this will not give us an error because it is being treated as an integer. Now, let me run it again. So we are entering a name and a age. So now it has been treated as an integer, and it is also allowing us to perform a mathematical operation, that is addition, because it is being treated as a number. Now, this is how you perform type conversion. So without type conversion, Python cannot perform mathematical operations on input. Now let us look at an example where we want to find the total price of a specific item. Now let us understand the logic behind it. So we want to find the total price of a specific item. So what logic applies here is we simply need to know the price of the item, and then we need to know how many quantity, in what quantity that item is being brought. So when you multiply this, you will get the total price, right? But we are supposed to perform the mathematical operation here, for which we want the data to be treated as an integer or float, because we cannot perform this operation on a string. Now let me put all of this into a comment line. Now, for calculating this, first we need two datas. First we need is a price. We want the user to type himself. So first of all, we'll take that value in the form of input. We are asking the user to enter the price of the item. But it will not allow us to do the mathematical operation. So we can either convert it into an integer or a float. So I am converted into a float because sometimes the price is also in a decimal value. Now we want the user to enter the quantity, in what quantity the item was bought. So it is mostly an int value. We buy items like in the quantity of 5 or 6. So we are taking it through input, and this time we want the user to enter the quantity. Now we have taken both the values. Now it is time to apply and find the total price. So I have created a variable total price where I want to perform the operation where we need to multiply the price into the quantity, which will give us the total price of a specific item. Now, until you put it in the print statement, it will not be displayed on the output screen. So now we are using the print function so that it is displayed on the output screen. So I also want to use a text mentioning the total price of the item is. Now, because the total price is being stored inside the variable total price, we will simply call that variable here and let us see what is the output of it. So it will first take two values from you. So we are entering 200 and the quantity is 5. But you see, the answer you're getting is in the form of float because the price of the item was taken in the form of a float. So when a float is multiplied with a integer, the answer you get is a float. But if in case you don't want it to be treated as a float and you want it to be treated as an integer, you can again perform the type conversion here and write int behind the variable, and the data type will be converted from a float to an integer. I'm entering the same value so that you see the difference. So now, though it was a float value and though it was an integer value, and the answer we got earlier was a float value, but now it is being treated as an integer and that decimal point has been removed. So now this value will be treated as an integer after performing the type conversion. So this is how input is used in billing systems, data entry, and automation script. So let us quickly recap what all we discussed today. So first was the input function, which allows the user to enter the data and that data will be stored inside that variable. But the data type of the variable will be assumed to be a string. It will be treated as a string, but we can perform type conversion and make it into an integer or float data type whenever needed. And input makes your program interactive and useful. So in the next video, we will combine input with conditions. That's where real decision making starts.